When Jesus entered the wilderness of temptation, Satan wanted to destroy him. But God wanted to build him up. Same desert, completely opposite purposes. And that's not a contradiction. It's the hidden logic behind one of the most important moments in Jesus' life, and behind some of the hardest moments in your own life. When you're in a wilderness season, when a relationship unravels, when loss hits you in the chest, when something you've built starts to fall apart, you may feel all alone. But you're not alone in that place. Two forces are at work. Both have a plan, and the outcome depends on which one you let have its way. So in this video, I want to look at Jesus' temptation to show you how all this works. That way, you can understand what's happening when temptation hits, overcome Satan's strategy, and come out on the other side stronger and closer to God. And by the way, my name is Aaron Massey. I've been following Jesus and teaching the Bible since 2009. My hope with this channel is to foster gospel clarity and create confident faith. Now, the timing of Jesus' temptation is no accident. It follows his baptism. That was the highest moment of his life to that point. When Jesus stepped out of the Jordan River, the sky above him tore open. The Spirit descended in the form of a dove and rested on him, and then the Father's voice thundered out, "This is my Son, whom I love. With him I am well pleased." It's Matthew 3:17. Before a watching crowd, God publicly declared his approval. There had never been an announcement like this in all of history. Jesus was commissioned as God's chosen one. God authorized Jesus to lead and carry out God's cosmic plan to redeem and restore humanity. But get this, right at that peak moment, right after the voice, the Spirit, the public declaration, Jesus entered the wilderness. Mark records that the Spirit sent him there, Mark 1:12. The Greek word for sent is ekbalo. It's the same word used when Jesus cast out demons. That was no gentle nudge by the Spirit. God expelled his Son into the desert deliberately. Matthew states it plainly. Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. Matthew 4:1. In his humanity, Jesus would not have chosen this, but he yielded to the Spirit's leading and embraced the Father's will. Bonhoeffer contrasted these events like this. The temptation of Jesus was the reverse side of his baptism. At his baptism, heaven was opened. In his temptation, it was hell that was opened. The wilderness didn't undo what had happened at the Jordan, but it was the next chapter in God's plan. And temptation can work that way with us too. It arrives when we least expect it, often right on the heels of something good. You're in a season of blessing, things are going well, you're feeling great, and then that season closes. And without warning, you're standing in a wasteland, wondering how you got there. One day, God's presence is close and his goodness is just undeniable. And then the next day, it all seems to fade away. Spurgeon gives us some encouragement when this happens. He wrote, "God will often take away the enjoyment of the promises, but he will never take away the promises themselves." But here's where we need to remember something important. When you enter a wilderness season, whatever form it takes, both God and Satan are actively at work in it. Same experience, completely opposite goals. Satan uses it as temptation. His goal is to pull you away from God, to take your eyes off God, make you doubt his goodness, distrust his promises, and reach for whatever feels easiest in the moment. Satan wants you to abandon integrity, walk away from faith, and settle for the counterfeit. That's what temptation is. A lure toward what destroys you. It's a drawing away from what sustains you. Satan's aims with Jesus in the desert was the same as his aim with you and yours. Whether the season is long or short, big or small, that is Satan's design with temptation. But God's purpose runs the other direction entirely. He cannot be tempted toward evil, and he does not tempt anyone toward it. God tests, and testing is not the same thing as tempting. The late pastor Adrian Rogers drew the line sharply when he said, God tests us to make us stand, Satan tempts us to make us fall. God uses the wilderness to draw out what's good in you, to forge dependence, to surface weaknesses, and to produce a humility that can only come from being stripped down. It's not fun. It's not pleasant, but it's necessary. Now, can you see how this works? Both God and Satan are at work in the same moment, and that's the precise tension Matthew 4:1 holds. God's activity, Satan's activity, one desert. Think about a friendship or marriage that fell apart. The kind of rupture that leaves you replaying conversations, wondering what you missed, questioning whether people can be trusted at all. Satan uses that wound to close you off, to make your heart rock hard, to convince you that trusting another person is foolishness and that walling yourself off from others is wisdom. God uses that same rupture to draw you closer to Him so that He can soften what hurt has hardened in you, to surface the pride that made forgiveness feel impossible, and to make you reach for something more durable than another person's approval. Notice, it's the same relational split. It's the same agonizing loss. Two completely different destinations, though. The path forks the moment you decide where to look, toward God or away from Him. Satan's path plants a root of bitterness. God's path plants a root of love. This quote from William Butler Yeats captures what I think God is after here. He said, "Every conquering temptation represents a new fund of moral energy. Every trial endured and weathered in the right spirit makes a soul nobler and stronger than it was before." That is God's design behind every wilderness He allows. But here's where it gets harder, because some wilderness seasons don't pass quickly. For some of us, it's not just a bad week. It's months, it's years. The darkness won't lift. God's silence stretches out for an unbearable amount of time. What sets in is a particular kind of aloneness, not the absence of people, but the felt absence of God. You grow weak, you grow desperate, you start to wonder if He sees you at all, if He cares about you at all. And yet, even here, in that moment, when you have those feelings, God is working. It doesn't feel like He's working, but the wilderness has a curriculum. Oswald Chambers, the devotional writer, said, "When God gets us alone through suffering, heartbreak, temptation, disappointment, sickness, or even by thwarted friendship, when He gets us absolutely alone and we are totally speechless, unable to ask even one question, then God begins to teach us." What is He teaching? Dependence. God made it plain after Israel's 40 years in the wilderness, which was about 1,500 years before Jesus' experience. Moses, right at the end of that period, preached, "God humbled you, causing you to hunger and then feeding you with manna, to teach you that man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God." Deuteronomy 8:3. The wilderness was the classroom. Hunger was God's lesson plan at that moment. The goal wasn't punishment or pain. It was to create people with character who trusted God and not in themselves. Dependence. The Puritan William Bridges said, "Tempting times are teaching times." Satan wants you to focus only on the struggle and to fight him, but that's a losing battle. God wants you locked in to Him. And here's why. You can't manufacture what the wilderness produces. Deep dependence on God is not something you can reason your way into on a calm, comfortable afternoon. It has to be forged in the fire of need, and the way to get through that fire is by being locked on to God. The desert seasons are where that forging happens. So here's the hardest word in this entire video. The only way to beat the wilderness is by looking to God through it. It's not by escaping it. It's not by outsmarting it. It's by patiently waiting for God and trusting in God and depending on God through it. Notice that Jesus didn't just scramble to the exit. He fasted. He prayed. He fixed his attention on the Father and entrusted himself entirely into God's hands. He didn't try to make the wilderness convenient. He let it do what God sent him there to experience. Jesus stayed. John of the Cross, writing from his own experience of spiritual darkness, he said this, "In times of dryness and desolation, we must be patient and wait with resignation the return of consolation, putting our trust in the goodness of God." That waiting is not passivity. That is active spirituality. And the reward is real. Leo the Great wrote, "There is no works of power without the trials of temptation. There's no faith without proof, no contest without a foe, no victory without conflict." Every wilderness you endure in the right spirit produces something in you that nothing else can produce. Now, think back to where we started. Satan wanted to destroy Jesus through the wilderness. God wanted to build him up. Same desert, completely opposite purposes. And your wilderness is no different. Two forces are at work in it. You might even be in one right now. But both God and Satan have a plan. Your wilderness doesn't determine whether you rise or fall. What matters is where you turn to, and that's what determines everything. So that's it for this one. My name is Aaron Massey. I've been following Jesus and teaching the Bible since 2009. My goal with this channel is gospel clarity to help create a confident faith. And if you haven't seen my video on Jesus' baptism, which sets the stage for everything we covered today, check it out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.